Will you please settle down? Good morning, everyone. I just want to check who was here. You are here today. If you don't mind just putting your hand up. So you were here yesterday as well as today. Let me see. Can you just please give yourselves a round of applause, I think, for committing to this program and for being part of the climate change Indaba. And also, I just want to check who wasn't here yesterday. I can see some hands. You've missed out, colleagues, but please, this morning. And I think, yeah, we will try and give you a recap in terms of what actually happened yesterday. So we're hoping that you can then, in terms of where we are. As I've said, my name is Sabelo Pinkosa and I'm your program director. Also, I'd just like to say a special welcome to Councillor Shandu from the Mayor of Ilembe District. Siyabonga kakhulu Shandu Indaba ukuthi ube kanye nathi namhlanje. Phinde futhi sibonge uKhansela uMdlalose ube khona izolo uyena osenzele i-welcome as well as the-opening. Sibonga kakhulu ukuthi baba uphinde futhi waba kanye nathi osukwini la namhlanje. And now chairperson of the Council for the Built Environment, Simchali Siyabonga, and welcome to today's meeting. May we please give my dignitaries a round of applause this morning. First up for today, Bengfisa would send a recap of actually what happened yesterday, especially for those of you who may have missed out, but also you may have been engaged in other activities and business. And so we were able to do like a bit of a summary like for all of you. And so with that being said, I will not be doing that recap, but I would like to invite the CEO of the Council for the Built Environment, Dr. Msizi Mnyeza, just to give us amazwi nje ambalwa regarding a recap from yesterday. As he comes up, may we please give him a round of applause.
Sanbonan. Sanbonan. Senifunda umkhungu ungavumi manje manibingelela. Executive Mayor Babu Ndlalose and Babu Shandu ngiyabingelela. Speaker, Deputy Mayor ngiyabingelela. To CBE Chairperson Memchali, chairpersons of the councils that are here today, the Salga leadership. Mine is a quick one. It's a reflection from Izolo for abantu abebengekho la, just with Sinbeke Stombeni with what happened Izolo. Engikubonile ke chair and the mayor ukuthi kusasekude phambili. Ngisho kanjena ngoba uma unelemhlangano as public servants and academics and professors, siyastrugglisha communicate in a manner that makes sense to the audience that we are engaging with. And yenzakala across the board. So it's not a castigation to my colleagues that I've invited here, but it's also a learning for all of us. Ukuthi, if we are having a conversation emandeni, it does not mean that a conversation must be watered down for us to have an honest conversation about climate change. And iprova kumina ke ukuthi it's one of the things that I'm passionate about, the issue of language. That language matters. And language can also conceal a message. And language can also confuse the message you want to communicate. So, izolo Speaker Maevala, Mayor, when the observation that after lunch, iholo was empty. Iholo was empty, not because people were now my commitment, but ngiyacabanga ukuthi nangendlela ebesicommunicate ngayo kube ne-impact. Besikhuluma nje isingisi kuyoze kuyovala. So angisho ukuthi isingisi ngasikhuluma, mina ekhaya kwambonambi. Ngangisebenzela kamasipala eJohannesburg. Ubaba Masondo ke used to challenge us masenza ama-IDP izimbizo ukuthi uma upresent i-IDP nebudget yase-City Power or Joburg Water kufanele uyipresente ngendlela obuzoyipresenta ngayo eHoughton uma usuya eSoweto or eIvory Park. Izolo ke ngibonile ukuthi hayi wayeqinisile ubaba Masondo, because i-climate change conversation, it has proven, Chairperson, the point I was making, ukuthi we must localize the climate change conversation. And it has to be accessible to everyone. And professionals that were speaking here, they've taken a challenge to say, how do we localize a climate change conversation? So that at least we don't miss each other. So I thought let me start with that program director, because I think it's important. Awuthi ke ngenze chairperson ongicela ukuthi ngikwenze ukurecapa. Sibe nezikhulumi eziningi izolo uqala ekseni. Uqale ubaba uMdlalose okhulume ngokuthi kubalekile ukuthi sonke uma sihlangene kanje sibe nendlela okusebenzisana ukudila neclimate change, whether izikhukhula or izomiso lezi ezingamele indawo ehlukahlukene. But kubalekile ukuthi masihleli together kanjena namhlanje sithole ama solution azosincedisa ukudila neclimate change. Kube sengena ke ngeke ngize ngisho ngesequence ngizobala nje into esiqhamukile izolo. Umama umtshali ke yena ke ube sekhuluma ngokuthi ngoba size la CCBE size la because siyazi ukuthi asinawo ama solution thina sodwa. And ama solution lawo esiwafunayo our reside kuthina as ama professionals. We are also here to learn from abantu basemandeni, to learn from each other ukuthi singadila kanjani neclimate change. So size la njenge CBE si accept ukuthi kunama limitation of information esinayo. Kube sekukhuluma ke umama uSwart uBenny Swart uDeputy Minister wase Environmental Affairs. Yena ke obesenza ipledge ukuthi iDepartment yase Environmental Affairs iyenza icommitment ukusupporta omasipala nokusebenzisana nomasipala njengoba custodian ye Climate Change Act. Ubaba uZikalala ke naye ungenelile ke wasekhuluma nge-impact ye climate change, not only my properties na infrastructure, but na infrastructure in terms of economic impact. Ukuthi masibuka climate change si discuss broadly ukuthi yenze njani economy yalezo ndawo eziba impacted. Emveni kwalokho ubaba uZikalala ke uthe wasecela ukuthi uma sikhuluma namhlanje ama professionals kuzomela ukuthi aqhamuke nezisombululo ezi-innovative uku-assista ugovernment nomasipala ukumitigate against climate change. Kuma panel discussion ke besinawo ebe maningi kakhulu ilanga lonke ngizozama nje ukuhighlight izinto engiyiphicaphile ezimbalwa. Kube khona uCEO wase Overberg eWestern Cape okhulume ngokubaleka kwamanzi. Ukuthi kubalekile ukuthi sicabange ukuthi amanzi siwasave kanjani. eGauteng njengamanje kunenkinga yamanzi, kuba nenzuku la amanzi singabi nawo khona. eGauteng ine population of about 16 million ke we understand ke ukuthi I disaster engakanani uma le inkinga yamanzi iqhubeka. Wase enza ke iplea naye ukuthi mhlambe omasipala bengacabanga ukuthi through ama district ukuthi mhlambe bona ke bedile ne reticulation bese ukuthi ama district edile ne bulk ama district edile ne bulk infrastructure working nama entities. Professor wase-CSIR usasekhona njengamanje ngiyambona ukhulume nge-built information management information okuyiyona ebalekile ukuthi engasincedisa ukwenza sama umsebenzi ekufuneka siwenze. Nanokunye ke chairperson usinikeze i-challenge thina njenge-CBE ukuthi uma sisetha ama-tariff ama-professionals sithi ukuthi xaxa kancane ngoba ama-professionals awazi ukuthi ebe innovative designs because awabhadalelwa uma benze innovation. So as part of the procurement regime le ubaba uDladla akhulume ngayo from CIDB which we must look at how we procure infrastructure, but in doing so we must also look into the professional fees that we are charging. Ube khona ke conversation enye balekile babume ngicabanga ukuthi kufuneka mhlambe as part of a solution esisuka nayo la isixazululo sokuthi imizi nemizi kube ne drainage system. Angithi emakhaya ubukhanda ugadazi amanzi waqongolelwa wabeke ethankini emqomeni. Lokho kubalekile ngoba uma ungakwenzi lokho amanzi ameduze kwendlu bese indlu yawa noma amanzi egcine sigcina inhlabathi bese igcina indlu impact. So into ezibaleke singazenza lezi emakhaya sisodwa nje. Sengiphetha ke program director enye into eqhamukile izolo ukuthi i-climate change conversation cannot happen in isolation through regulations, act and. Idinga imali. So it has to be funded properly by government so that at least omasipala are not left with the responsibility yoku drive i-climate change agenda when imali ingekho ezoba support. Okugcina ke engikutholile ke ukuthi kukhona imizamo esiyenzayo ukudela ne-climate change as a country. Director wase public works usinikezile ama-case studies ambalwa kuma-project enziwa i-public works okudemonstrate ukuthi ngempela i-climate change does not ayonto esitheorize ngayo, also siyayipractice on some of the projects esiwenzayo. Nokunye ke sengivala municipal manager ukuthi le opportunity sinayo la namhlanje sisebenzisele ukunetworker nokuncedisa umasipala with ama-linkages ngabantu abakhona la. Kunabantu ka sebevolunteer ukuncedisana nomasipala njenge-rural development committee ukusebenza nani ukusupporta umsebenzi enwenzayo. Bakhona nabanye abakhona la today engikholwayo ukuthi ngoba bela abazile nje behamba with empty pockets bazoncedisa umasipala ukuthi resolve inkinga ehlangene nazo emphakathini. So ngiyathemba ukuthi sosebenzisa ithuba lelo ukuthi siqhubeke sinetwork kodwa singa network nje for the sake of networking kube khona ama tangible results esizophuma nawo. Ngiyabonga kakhulu program director.
Siyabonga kakhulu CEO Mqalathi Mshayeli Zandla Dr. Msizi Myeza. I think for driving, I think some of the board decisions and also just being deliberate as the council for the built environment, ukuthi focus on issues of climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, besicela sonke ukuthi simene ngezinyawo as we welcome a message of support. May you all just please be on your feet as we welcome the message of support from Councillor Tobani Shandu, who's the mayor of Ilembe District Municipality. Sicela simshayele izandla eseza ngaphambi kwethu.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Program Director, Mr. Nkosi, who's facilitating the program for today. Greetings to Mayor of Mandela Local Municipality, Ubaba Umdlalose in our midst. Greetings to Deputy Mayor and the Speaker of Mandela Municipality, and councillors present here. I see Councillor Mtono in the main. Greetings as well to Chairperson of ECPE, Umama Umchali, present here as well. Greetings to MM of the municipality of Imandeni, Ubaba Ukhuzwayo. Greetings once more to CEO Babu Mieza, who have just done recapping of the program of what's transpired yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, all protocol is observed. It is with great honor and humility and pride that I stand before you today to extend my heartfelt greetings and support for this built-in environment climate change in Indaba. And I would like to apologize for not being able to join you yesterday as my responsibilities required me as part of the cohort welcoming the president at the ceremony to unveil the statue of King Shaka, Gasazangakon, at the King Shaka International Airport yesterday. Our support for this engagement is rooted in our collective commitment to address the pressing challenges of climate change and socio-economic disparities within Ilembe district. These challenges have been exacerbated by the adverse weather conditions we experienced since 2021 in the main, if my memory serves me well, particularly in December. Through this Indaba, we seek to find direct responses to the urgent need for sustainable resilience and equitable development, drawing from the fountain of knowledge of all stakeholders from various sectors who are here to co-create spaces and places that align with the principles of a just transition. This collaborative and inclusive approach is essential for building a climate resilient built environment, particularly in developing and predominantly rural regions like ours. The theme for this year's Indaba, open quotes, co-creating spaces and places that respond to the just transition, close quotes, reflects our shared vision of the future where social equity, economic opportunity, and environmental sustainability are at the forefront of our development strategies. This theme is especially relevant in light of the recent climate disaster that have severely impacted our communities. Our officials who were participating in this engagement have informed me that this platform has given them a rare opportunity to integrate various thematic areas, including creating and enabling a regulatory framework for low carbon built environment, developing climate smart infrastructure design skills, and enhancing technical disaster response and mitigation capacity. These efforts are in line with the African National Congress policy on climate change and resilience, which emphasizes the importance of sustainable development, climate adaptation, and the protection of vulnerable communities. I would like to extend our warm gratitude to the scholars presenting their papers as this platform. Your research and insights are invaluable as we navigate the complexities of climate change and work towards innovative solutions. As a district municipality, we continue to reaffirm our support to local municipalities, including Mandeni local municipalities, in their tireless effort to improve their quality of life for all residents. Their leadership in promoting sustainable and development and climate change resilience is deeply appreciated and serve as an inspiration to all of us. In conclusion, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all the stakeholders, partners and participants who have come together to this Indaba, or to ensure this Indaba is a success. Your dedication and collaborative are crucial in our journey towards a sustainable and resilient future. Thank you very much, Program Director. I thank you.
Kala singabi na umbona, kala sishayele ukansela wethu izandla ezinkulu. Sibonga kakhulu Shandu Kandaba for your message of support, and I think really just shows a commitment from the district municipality, where it's not just the local municipality that is concerned with the impacts of climate change. And ladies and gents, please allow me to welcome the municipal manager for Mandeni, Umsesizwe Kuzwayo. He will be speaking to us about why climate change conversations matter for local government. Ngicela sishayele uMM wethu izandla ezinkulu eseza ngaphambili.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me take this opportunity to greet the district mayor, Babu Shandu, our mayor, Babu Nyand, deputy mayor, Babu Njinj, honorable speaker of the local. I haven't seen Umam Shandu, who is our district speaker. Greetings to the chairperson and the board members, our honorable councillors, distinguished guests, delegates, Sanbona. I will take a tune from CEO to use isiZulu. I think mine is just to summarize I think a lot was said yesterday, but for me it's just to zoom closely ukuthi why the issue of climate change should be a standing item with agenda of local government, because there are so many items deal now with local government, but if you ignore into climate change, whatever plans that you have, azogcina engaphumelelanga, because you will invest, but if you have not invested on strategies to deal with the issue of climate change, then your investment will be futile. Local government, as we are here today, under Imande municipality, it's one sphere of government. It is one sphere of government that is directly linked with Abantu. South Africa as a whole, in its size, it's more than 1.2 million square kilometers, but there is not even a single inch that is outside a local government space. So which means everything that happens in the country happens within the space of a local government. Van der Vaart also indicated that a local government is at a coalface of a public service delivery. While Uthon Hill stated that a local government is often the first point of contact with our individuals. So which means a person ovuka ekhaya, ovuke namhlanje, the first contact with the government will be the local government. So while efunama services that will be provided by maybe other sphere of government, whether at a provincial or at a national level, but first point will be a local government that is nearby that particular individual. Then coming closer to the element, climate change, if you go and read the Constitution, Section 152, which talks about objects of a local government, one of those 5 objects talks to a responsibility of local government to promote a safe and healthy environment for the communities. So now, coming closer to the element, what will be the impact of climate change to the society at large? I think a lot has been said. It was presented yesterday. I'm not going to go through this, but I've just captured a few points. How the issue of climate change will impact the livelihoods. Issues of droughts, I think Deputy Minister spoke about it yesterday. Issues of floods affecting the existing infrastructure, affecting just the general livelihoods. I mean, we've seen it in KZN. If you've seen the news recently, N2 is affected. There is an economic corridor. So there are economic activities that have been affected. So if the infrastructure that's supposed to be a catalyst towards economic development is affected, so the whole system is affected, because if people can't go to work, then there's a problem. Kids can't access indawo zokufunda, then the whole system is affected. So that's part of our impacts ekufuneka sibhekane nawo uma sese affectwa ama storms, ama floods because of climate change. Now, I've already mentioned this, ukuthi if you look at the fiscus, local government, most of the municipalities, they don't generate their own revenues. So they rely on grants. Whatever that they've invested, or whatever that is available for them to invest in infrastructure development to enhance their livelihoods, if there are storms, that infrastructure is destroyed. Now you need to go back and reinvest on what you have already invested on. Then it means you're supposed to make progress, but to go back and repair and rebuild infrastructure that has been destroyed because of climate change results, which one of them will be the floods. So even your private businesses, they are also affected. It's not only government, private sector is also affected. So then if we ignore this subject matter at a local government level, then it will have a serious impact. Now, why is it important that we should have this subject matter on top of the agenda? I've already mentioned, you can have your IDP, you can have your strategies, but if your plans ungawabukanga ukuthi azokwazi yini ukuthi akulekelele to address risk that may materialize because of climate change, then your plans are not credible to take you forward. The issue of information, I think yesterday it was presented. Municipalities have gone a lot, they've done a lot in terms of preparing their plans. There is information that is available to plan for future. But now, what are we supposed to do with that information in order to enhance the lives of the people? Yesterday, there was a presentation on the Climate Change Act. The existing plans, they have not looked into the issue of the climate strategy or the climate approach by our government. Now there is an act that is in place that we need to review our plans so that they can be aligned to the objectives of the Climate Change Act, so that we are able to respond. And remember, this is not an issue that one institution should deal with. I'm not talking about local government, umasipala that should be looking at the issue of climate change within its jurisdiction. You must acknowledge that there are other stakeholders that are key role players within your own jurisdiction. So when you establish a forum that will deal with the climate change, you should be able to identify other stakeholders. There is private sector, there are professionals from institution of higher learning who will be able to share more information on the research that has been done, focusing on specific areas within the specific municipalities. So it is important that we are able to start establishing these forums so that we are able to talk about the issues of climate change. This will assist ekuthenini izinto esizenzayo zibe integrated, sikwazi no consolidate ama resources ukwazi ukudila with issues of climate change. There are existing critical stakeholders within umasipala. In our case, sinamakhosi awu-4. Kubalulekile ukuthi amakhosi mas establisha lama structures abe ingxenye, including izinduna, so that whenever we put together these plans, like your spatial development framework, your integrated waste management plan, your climate change strategies, kubalulekile ukuthi nabo benza ama inputs. We cannot ignore indigenous knowledge when we put these plans together. I think it was also mentioned yesterday ukuthi kubalulekile ukuthi we take into consideration of indigenous knowledge, because those people, they know what has happened historically, and then when you do your plan, you know that there are certain areas that you need to ensure that they are protected. If our plans are not addressing the issue of land use management within our jurisdiction, then we'll have a problem. Yes, ikona issue ukuthi at times kuba ngathi there are processes that are running parallel to each other. Umasipala will have plans in place. You find that the traditional leaders, they want to allocate people on certain areas. But if we have planned together and we have ensured to they made their inputs, those inputs are incorporated, but we are also able to advise our traditional leaders about areas that are sensitive, areas that should be protected. I think we should minimize a situation where people are exposed as a result of climate change, and then they suffer the consequences from the disasters, whether in the form of floods. Also, we need to ensure that we are able to mobilize other government departments, other stakeholders. I think CEO has indicated that this platform is not just to share the knowledge, but is to also identify the potential partners so that we are able as a municipality or other municipalities, because they are also here, through the networking, they can also benefit out of this session. We need to ensure that we create awareness in our communities. Program Director, it's always good to create awareness, especially kubantu sebekhulile, but our experiences have told us that investing in young people, you always achieve more. I'll cite one example. We've started with the program, CEO, with Statistic SA, which is called Isbalo. That program is implemented in high schools across Mandeni to try and encourage our young kids to love or to like mathematics, statistics, because professionally, bayashort abantu abakuleyo field. Now, I think one of the outcomes of this engagement for us is to mobilize more resources. We want to partner with schools to start implementing a program that deals with issues of climate change, so that you started from the grassroots level. Once we have invested in that level, then you know ukuthi your investment is over a spin-off, but it's something that will also be engaged at the household level while you deal with the community at a broader level, but try and also zoom Guma household through engaging the school children. Now, how do we then adapt? I think that was one point I was mentioning, ukuthi we need to forge a partnership with the Department of Education. We need to forge a partnership with Amakosi so that we are able to put the subject of climate change on top of the agenda for each and every platform where we engage. We need to come up with strategies that will be able to minimize the impact of climate change. As much as I've indicated, ukuthi as a local authority or local authorities, we should play a leading role in terms of crafting of this adaptation plan. We cannot do alone. We need to coordinate other role players. Sorry. Also, we need to ensure that besides going to the high school, but we need to form part with institution of higher learning, so that we keep on doing our research, because isimo nesimo siyashintsha. So we must always have a current information. I'm sure that yesterday we've noted a presentation that was done, especially with element yokusetshenziswa kwe-drone. I think we are going to take advantage of that offer that has been given to us to say, let Mandene be the first one to get that opportunity to apply and fly again and be able to have a current information that will assist us to do planning, coming up with these strategies to deal with the issues of climate change and any other plans. We've agreed, CEO, that we should be the first one to start benefiting from that opportunity. That is why we are saying a capacity that does not exist within our municipality. It does not mean there is no capacity out there that you can tap on. So that's what we are saying. This platform, we are going to take that forward and be able to take advantage of that. I've mentioned the issue of Amakosi, that we need to work closely with them so that imphakathi emningi within Mandeni and other local municipalities ihlala endaweni zamakhosi. So kubalulekile ukuthi we work together with Amakosi. We would like to request uKokta to play a key role in facilitating our working relations with Amakosi. Because at times kuba engathi there is a clash. Remember Amakosi engamele umhlaba, but if we come and present plans at times kuba ne confusion as if we want to take umhlaba as umasipala, but our role as the local government is to ensure that we plan and then we develop the communities. So that relationship is very critical between umasipala and Amakosi. So I think uKokta must assist us in ensuring that our relationship ahlale right. We need to also engage the private sector. Mandeni, we've got a problem. We've got a very big industrial estate. Some of those industries, they don't conform to environmental compliance issues. So now, we need to ensure that they are also on board whenever we put these plans together, whenever we come up with strategies, we need to ensure that they comply. While we are a local authority, there are other institutions outside the Mandeni municipality or outside any municipality in terms of roles and responsibilities that are supposed to perform. If kufuneka kwenziwa ama-inspection to those industries to ensure compliance, uMandeni or any local municipality will do its part, but there are other authorities that we want to see them forming a partnership with municipalities in ensuring that the issue of compliance is adhered to by those industries. While we appreciate that they create job opportunities, but they must not compromise the environment. They still have to comply. So we want to ensure that we are able to bring them on board. Also, in South Africa, it has been indicated that it's generating a lot of waste. I'm sure as we are here, if we can quantify the water bottles that are here, we will leave them here empty and then they will be collected. They will be thrown away. But they can be recycled and create some opportunities, because if all these water bottles are thrown away, what will be the impact environmentally? So we are saying part of the intervention that we want to come up with is to ensure ukuthi initiatives that deals with the recycling of the used material, we need to upscale some of the used material to be reusable. I don't know how many vehicles are outside here. We don't bother what happens with our tires when we buy new tires. You just leave them there. You just leave them there at the shower shops and then that's it. But they can be reused. You can upscale them, you can create furniture with those tires. So what we are saying, and those tires, if you upscale, they are not going into waste, they are not going to cause any environmental challenge. So we are saying here, let us ensure that our plans are able to deal with issues of recycling, we are able to deal with issues of upscaling, so that we are able to protect the environment and minimize the impact of the climate change and be able to create sustainable jobs. Just one last issue, Program Director, that I need to highlight here. I think it will be important kuma communities ukuthi we establish climate change ambassadors, so that within the community themselves, they are able to talk about these issues. Kungabe ukuthi kukhulunywa ngazo as and when mhlambe we have these kind of platforms, or maybe if the municipalities visit those communities, but it should be a daily subject that will have to be dealt with by our communities. So I think we need to ensure with those ambassadors, at least aqhamuka khona emphakathini, we capacitate them. Mhlambe kwasitha nje CEO, if we can access funding, we train those individuals. They are ambassadors. If there are stipends to pay them, I think that will go a long way. While we create some opportunities for them, but in a bigger picture, we are also able to address issues of environmental management and the climate change. I think that will take us a long way. Thank you very much.
Siyabonga kakhulu ngicela simshayele izandla umnguni esehlela ngezantsi. Mnguni sibonga ukuthi uthinta izinto kakhulu. I think you've reflected also ukuthi kwenzakaleni izolo and some of the discussions just in terms of community awareness, recognizing indigenous knowledge when we're coming up with climate change plans. So siyabonga ngaloko kuthulile. Nokuthi izolo Councillor Shandu, we were challenged ukuthi these things we must not be having talk shops. Which we need to move from talking but to action. And then is really like from Ubaba Mnguni is ukuthi we are now moving towards action. Like he's talking about Indaba of establishing climate change forums emphakathini waseMandeni, as well as building a capacity of climate change ambassadors endaweni ehlukahlukene. And I think lokho kuyakhombisa impela ukuthi now we are getting into action. And instead of the CBE Mamchali, I think one of the things that this climate change Indaba is actually doing, I think is really starting to create opportunities and linkages in terms of how we can then support each other. And I think I'm glad Uti Mandeni is taking advantage of some of the offers which were made as part of this climate change Indaba. So I think with that being said, besicela sishayele MM wethu waseMandeni local municipality usize khuzwa izandla enkulu. And ngisacela nokukhulula ama dignitaries esinawo ngaphambili bengifisa ukuthi bake bethole nje ama refreshments aphana holding room sibonga kakhulu ukuthi nibe khona la ngaphambi nibe khona la phakathi kwethu asini xoshi ngoba nisengahlala phinde futhi ni engage and just to hear ama proceedings enzakalayo namhlanje. And I think with that being said, I think can we give our dignitaries a round of applause as they break for tea. Ladies and gents, we will move on. What we normally have as part of our program, we've got what are known as our elevator pitches. We have our third one of this conference, of which will be delivered by Ms. Motlalepula Pito, who's the Director of Disaster Preparedness, Response and Recovery Coordination at the National Disaster Management Center. Ms. Pito, if you can please come up on stage and give us your pitch this morning. Let's give her a round of applause as she comes up. This is you. So you just need to jump from here, but they will show you the presentation.
How do I bring this down? Good morning, the principals, executive speaker, the mayors, chairperson, the councillors, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, and colleagues. Good morning. I was challenged this morning to speak for us to speak in our traditional languages, but unfortunately, ke Motswana, so I'm going to lose the better part of the whole. So, as introduced, I'm Motlalepula Pito. We have prepared a presentation as the National Disaster Management Center just to share the lessons, particularly with regard to building capacities within the disaster management function, but also to share the lessons and contribute to today's engagement. Our presentation may look long, but we just prepared it for comprehensiveness. We're not going to go through all the slides, and I want us to take it as a continuation from what we did and talked about yesterday, because there are a lot of interlinkages, and for us just to contribute to our discussion today. Colleagues, I'm not going to go through the problem statement. I think the problem statement has been painted yesterday. And we are on the overview of disaster risk in South Africa. That is the slide that we are on. Yes, this is the picture, colleagues, that is keeping us awake at night. And I think the engineers and built environment should assist us with the challenge of this picture. And I think that challenge has been adequately spoken about yesterday. Our poor drainage system, colleagues, that is what is contributing towards the challenges of flooding that we continue to experience. So we continue to see an increase in hazards, tropical cyclones and storms, tornadoes, the storm surges, coastal tides, and tsunamis. When we were studying, and we were told that we will experience these incidents and events in our lifetime, I did not believe it, but now we get to experience them. And of importance is that it cannot be business as usual. This requires drastic change by all of us in doing business within our functional areas, but most importantly, the focus should be on disaster risk reduction and mitigation measures as per the Disaster Management Act. So we are from the National Disaster Management Center. It is established within the public service and is currently within the Ministry of Cooperative Governance. The function, we are responsible for the implementation of the Disaster Management Act, and we are also administering the fire legislation, the fire brigade service. But our objective, the main role of the Disaster Management Center is to promote an integrated and coordinated system of disaster management with the special emphasis on prevention and mitigation. So we often hear when incidents happen, people will be saying disaster management must come on board. When we come on board, we come on board to bring all the relevant stakeholders that have the legislated mandate to deal with those incidents on board. That is our main responsibility as disaster management fraternity. And we have disaster management centers also across the spheres. The Provincial Disaster Management Center, unfortunately, they could not be with us, and as well as the Disaster Management Center within local government, that is the district municipality and the metro, and also, as well as the staff of that are responsible for disaster management function within the local municipalities. So, colleagues, this shows the slide. Next slide. We just show you our disaster management legislation and disaster management policy framework, and it illustrates the diagram on the KPAs and enablers, illustrates
I'll play
required
his role.
or guide
I'll
on the
ask you
required
guys
capacity
questions.
within the disaster management function.
So
each organ
you'll
of
switch it
state.
on when it's time.
And of importance is that disaster management function is not necessarily
Same office.
it
I'm
is
in
a-
disaster
as
management. He's in
indicated,
climate
it is,
change.
we are responsible for the coordination of relevant organs
So
of
I'll
state
speak in
as
Zulu,
per
ne?
their
Don't worry.
respective mandates. And on bullet number 2, we
It's
are indicating
okay.
that Disaster Management Act does not apply to an occurrence where, to an extent that the occurrence can be dealt with effectively in terms of other existing legislation.
So I'm Shela
What do
Ganjan.
we mean by that? What we mean is that when there's an incident, for instance, with regard to currently there's a challenge with regard
Nagami home
to
language is Zulu.
food poisoning in the country. As we speak,
In the
our
West,
ministers are in a
my
meeting
husband
to
is
discuss
speaks
the
Shangaan
challenge
and
of food
Portuguese.
poisoning and the running of tuck shops in the
Little
country.
bit, yeah,
So
but
we've
he
been
came
brought on
when he
board
was very
as the
young.
Disaster Management Center to play our role, and our role is to coordinate
So you
and
speak-
determine as to who is responsible for that particular function.
It's Zulu.
And it's
Ah,
cross-cutting.
so I'll be the only
Brought on board Department of Health
non-Zulu.
and the health-related matters, but most importantly,
And I've
is
mastered
the
Google
security
Translate,
cluster
you know.
that is responsible for
So how long is it?
addressing
So you give us,
illegal,
I think we'll give each other
practices
3
amongst
minutes
that.
each because we have 20 minutes.
okay,
our
3 minutes.
role
Is that
Five.
too much?
is
Is
relevant
that too short?
5 minutes, yeah, 2
do
minutes
what
is
they
too
are
much.
supposed to
Okay.
do as
I
per
thought
their
maybe we'll
legislated
also want to
mandate.
engage
And we
the
have to bring
the
their
audience, I
own
don't know.
puzzles. I think
No,
the
we-
pictures here
If
depict
5, how many minutes in total do we have?
multi-sectoral
20.
and
Yeah, how
multidisciplinary
many,
nature of
which minutes will you take
our,
to give an overview?
the
I'll
work.
I'll take
But
5
there's no
minutes.
one
Hey, God, I
organization
speak
that
too
can
much.
be
Then we
You
have
know
5
me.
minutes to engage, you know,
all the
from yesterday there isn't
responsibilities.
a lot of
So we need
engagement.
to,
Okay.
So 5 minutes
work
should be fine
together.
for
And,
engagement.
Yeah, now
the
you have big hair
cornerstone of
just
the
like
act
me.
is on disaster risk reduction.
Underneath the hair, yeah, you can put
which
it
is,
underneath the hair.
Basically,
So we'll be sitting there, we won't
anticipating
go to the podium.
future disaster
We'll-
risk. We need
We'll go to the
to
podium.
plan for the future.
No,
Five,
I
five,
think we
five.
can sit.
Who can sit here?
Yeah.
The picture that we have seen of those flooded roads shows that we built those roads for today. We did not anticipate the future risks and the population growth and other developments. And we need to also look at improving resilience within communities. Yesterday, the Honorable Councillor Tabane Tabane Mdlalose indicated that the area is the breadbasket of the province. And in order for it to remain the breadbasket, we need to look at disaster risk reduction measures and in improving resilience. And also because we are called here by the built environment sector, we have from our side as the disaster management center or the function, our expectation from the built environment sector led by Department of Public Works is that they need to carry out their assigned mission. We went into their website to look at their mission, and the mission says they want to provide strategic direction and quality services, offering innovative and proactive socio-economic infrastructure delivery and the maintenance of public assets while protecting the environment and the cultural historic heritage. And if one sector and fraternity can do what they are supposed to do, colleagues, we will achieve what we want to do. These, colleagues, are the issues that are really keeping us awake as the disaster management sector. Ka Setswana re di bitsa ditlhoba boroko. We are unable to sleep as the fraternity, and these perpetuate vulnerabilities within the sectors, within the country, and hinders the realization of sustainable development. And these are, I think they have been referred to yesterday, non-consideration of spatial planning resulting in development in unsafe areas. And the issue is what should be done is that we need to do what we are supposed to do. We cannot be building in wetlands. And one other issue, colleagues, is that, and principles, is that there are no consequence management in the country. When we go around in the provinces doing assessments and looking at interventions, often we ask as to, was this development approved, and who approved it, and what are the enforceable measures that are in place? And you never hear an answer. The only focus is on disaster grants. And there's also lack of poor maintenance of asset and infrastructure in the country that is all known, and we often tend to focus on expanding the infrastructure, developing, but whilst neglecting what is already there. So we need to look at striking the balance. Illegal occupation and hijacking of buildings is one of the biggest problems that we have. There's very little that is not done, but there are enforcement levers in the country, because Disaster Management Act is just an IGR based act. We do not have an enforcement lever. If you call us, as the NDMC has indicated, to say the building has been hijacked and there are challenges, what we are going to do to help you is to bring on board all the relevant organs of state that have the legislated mandate. We are often being called to say, can you remove these people from the unsafe areas? We do not have that mandate. We will be taken to court, colleagues. So our main role is to bring those that have legislated mandate to do that, to do their work. And one of the issues that we also, as the built environment sector, to look at is the issue of risk transfer, colleagues. We need to ensure our assets, our infrastructure, particularly the infrastructure that are for critical services, your water infrastructure, your electricity infrastructure, because as the country, we will no longer be able to afford funding disaster interventions from our own coffers. We are going to run bankrupt as a country very soon. And there's also the challenge that we are faced with is the reluctance or lack of will by relevant organs of state to implement their legislation and enforce in cases of transgression, which is a challenge. Your National Environmental Management Act, your National Water Act, they have enforcement levers in them, but there's no enforcement that is taking place. So this is a call to action to all organs of state to do what they are supposed to do through their legislated mandate, and also the enforcement of bylaws. Yesterday, DDG from Clinton, from Rural Development, showed us the bylaws that are within the municipality, but the issue is that, are we enforcing them? In the next slide, we are showing as the National Disaster Management Center the work that we are doing with regard to this disaster risk profile. And we have, we took a glance at the risk profile of eThekwini, which incorporated Ilembe and Mandeni. And we have, this confirms what was referred to yesterday, that there are major disaster incidents, flooding, severe weather, strong winds, and landslides. But this does not end the colleagues. Of importance is that, so what? What do we do with this information? Do we save it? Do we archive it? We need to then, when produced, give it to our planners and say, incorporate it in your, in your development plans, so that you say these areas we can no longer build on it because of the recurrence and the vulnerability. And also, these documents should be included in our IDPs, disaster management plans. We should also look at enhancing our policies and bylaws. The next slide talks about the work that you are doing also as the NDMC. From our policy and legislation unit, we're looking at the compliance with regard to the disaster management centers in various provinces. So we go around assessing the status of compliance of disaster management centers in line with the Disaster Management Act. And notable from the recent assessment of Ilembe Disaster Management Center, which Mandeni is within, is one of the main challenges that we just wanted to highlight is inadequate capacity to coordinate stakeholders and implement the disaster management function, and would like to urge the principals, so the mayors and the MMs, to really look at capacitating and also supporting the disaster management function, and investment in important enablers such as ICT systems could assist. Then the slide is on the on the disaster management planning. I'm not going to go into detail with regard to it, but we all know that the Act requires all the organs of state to have develop their disaster management plans. And those disaster management plans must be informed by risk assessments. Because what we see often is that these are developed for compliance purposes, just to tick the box, and we archive them. So we need to have our disaster management plans informed by risk assessments that are feasible, but most importantly, these plans must be implemented. And we have issued out a guideline as the NDMC just to provide guidance to the organs of state on how to go about developing their disaster management plans. We have furthermore prepared as the department a guideline on the integration of DRR measures into the IDPs. As we are aware that this is a legislated requirement for IDPs to have their disaster management plans, and we have also a technical task team on disaster risk reduction, disaster risk management, and DRR to promote and strengthen the risk governance and invest in DRR. And we would also urge the provinces and municipalities to also have their own structures internally for them to also be able to look at enhancing resilience. And we would also like to commend the the Mandeni local municipality and the district, because they have disaster management plans, which is very commendable. And we have also assessed it, and in our assessment briefly, it shows the hazards that are facing Mandeni: sinkholes, deforestation, fires, severe weather, and I'm not going to go through the entire list, but the issue is, so what? We need to start also incorporating and addressing these issues in our plans. Yesterday, the Deputy Minister of Public Works indicated that when we develop, we remove the trees, which is a problem. And as we can see, that this is one of the challenges that Mandeni is faced with, deforestation. And so we need to see as the built environment that when we come in and develop, we do not necessarily affect the ecosystem, but we enhance and be able to interact. I'm going to, then of importance is that what we noticed from the disaster management plan is that Ndulinde, Matambini, and Matonsi areas are the most vulnerable areas to various hazards and have the least capacity to cope. So what does this mean? The support should be directed to them. Okay, I'm running out of time. In this slide, we're just indicating key climate and DRR mitigation measures. But of importance is the legal measures. I'm not going to go through the entire slide. The legal measures that are supposed to be put in place, particularly the bylaws. On the next slide, colleagues, we're sharing the most basic things on how things should be done, that we need to go to back to basics. And this is not about a program, but let's return to simpler way of doing things, but also to communities. When early warning is being communicated, can we please take heed and look at the warning and take the advisory? And we need to clear stormwater drainage systems, adhere to building codes and standards. In the next slide, we are just showing the funding as the Disaster Management Center on how we supported Mandeni through our disaster grants. This is just the recent information that we picked out. We have in total 17 million that we awarded, upgrading of gravel roads, rehabilitation of, and when I was sitting and looking at it, I'm tempted to even say to the team, the municipal team, that we should go to these projects and see as to whether they have built back better and there's value for money in the projects that we have funded. And this is the collaborative efforts that we are advising the municipality to look at in enhancing capacity. We have community work program, but I think they are not adequately utilized. Municipal infrastructure agent, the CEO spoke adequately about how we support them. And I'm going to slide number 17, which is in summary, how we are advising on the capacity building within the municipalities, that we should appoint suitably qualified staff, we should have a functional institutional arrangement, skills development, and invest in technologies. I'm going to skip everything else. The facilitator is yes, standing. So I'm going to request that we go to the recommendation, that we take note of our presentation, but also what is important is that can we do what we are supposed to do, implement our legislation, enforce our bylaws so that we enhance resilience within the organizations. Thank you.
No. Yeah, thank you. In fact, we have eaten into time for questions. So unfortunately, we will not be able to engage with Ms. Pito. Let's give her a round of applause. I think that was an insightful presentation. I've certainly did learn a lot. I was hoping that we would have had some time, I think at least to interact in terms of this presentation. But I think there are some practical solutions that have actually been shared with us this morning from a National Disaster Management Center perspective. And I think let's give them a round of applause because they do work under very difficult circumstances. But I think for me, Ms. Peter, the take-home message is that we've got to do what we're supposed to do as government officials in terms of enforcing and in terms of applying bylaws as well as implementing legislation. Ladies and gents, we're going to move on to a curated discussion this morning. We've only got one curated discussion today, whereas we had a couple that we had yesterday. This one will be focused on SALGA's perspective in terms of how we should be dealing with issues of climate change at a local government level. Unfortunately, we do not have Councillor Nkosinathi Mnyeni with us. He has sent his apologies attending the presidential imbizo, which is looking at the district development model in eThekwini. But fortunately, we do have Ms. Sibusiwe Goba Sikawuka to then to basically lead this curated discussion. May I please give her a round of applause as she comes up to the stage. She will then invite fellow panel members to then join her as part of this discussion.
Thank you very much, Program Director, for the introduction. Ngithanda ukubingelela abahlonipheki bonke abakhona lapha endlini, osodolobha bonke abakhona, nabosomlomo bonke abakhona. Ngithanda ukubingelela umphathi wedolobha lalapha eMandeni osanda kukhuluma. Ngibonge ukuthi ukhulume ngendlela nami bengizokhuluma ngayo, ngakho ke okuningi bengizokusho ngizokufinqa. Ngithanda ukubiza ngaphambili labo engizokhuluma nabo, engizoxoxisana nabo kule ngxoxo yanamuhla. I'd like to call the panel members, my colleague Ms. Lungi Ndlovu, who's a senior specialist for ecological infrastructure at the South African National Biodiversity Institute, to come forward. And she will be followed by my colleague, Mr. Rabelani Shikalanke. He's also from SALGA. He is the senior manager responsible for environment and climate change. I'd also call forward Mr. Mzwandile Hatebe. I'm not sure if he's in the house. He's the acting head of Center for the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Disaster Management Center. Lastly, Mr. Masupa Matenjwa, who is also in disaster management in the district of Ilembe here in KwaZulu-Natal. I'm going to introduce the topic and then I will have a discussion with my panelists. We've been given 20 minutes to have this discussion, so I'm going to be very short in my introductory presentation because it is already, most of the issues have already been covered. Can we have it flighted, please? So, sikhuluma lana ngokushintsha kwesimo sezulu kwenkathi ende, climate change, and how do we localize the discussions around it? Okay, thank you. So we have a number of climate change related disasters that we have experienced recently in South Africa, including issues of wildfires, severe weather events, including storms, floods, snow, and heat waves. And they actually challenge the ability of communities to prepare, respond, and recover, resulting in impact to both human health and community resilience. These have also created a need for us to look at how communities can become more resilient. So I'm going to talk about community resilience just a little bit. Community resilience represents the ability of communities to use their available resources to prepare for, to respond to endure, and to recover from extreme events. And we are talking about floods, economic shocks, and disease outbreaks. But I want to take it further than that, because recently we are talking about the food poisoning issues that have been experienced in communities. Senzani thina singumphakathi ngalokho, yini esingakwenza futhi singumphakathi? Kungaba kanjani kuba umphakathi ukwazi ukuthi uzisimamele wona umelane nazo zonke lezimo? So mina ngikhuluma ne-leadership, abamphathi ababhekene nohulumeni basemakhaya, ngikhuluma ngamakhansela, ngikhuluma ngabaholi bendabuko, bese ngikhuluma ngabaholi basemphakathini. Angizukufunda lokho kubhaliwe lana, kodwa ngikhuluma ngokuthi imithetho eyengamele lokho ithini. Izinkinga esibhekene nazo manje thina esisebenza ngesimo esibucayi nesimo sezinhlekelele, which is emergency services and disaster management. Emsebenzini yethu senza kakhulu lokuthi siwo big brother, siyaletha izinto emphakathini, the top down approach, nokuthi ubuciko obukhona sibuthatha sibulethe ngaphandle kokubheka ukuthi yibuphi ubuciko obukhona emphakathini. So mina njengoba ngime lapha phambi kwenu ngithi kunesidingo sokuthi sibuke ubuciko obukhona emphakathini sibe sesiyabuthatha sibusebenzisa. Ngiyajabula ukuthi umphathi womkhandlu walapha eMandeni ukhulume ngeproposal yama-champions. Okusho ukuthi umphakathi kufanele ukuthi ukwazi ukuthi uzisimamele wona ngaphandle kokuthi ulindele izinsiza zahulumeni. So I'm suggesting that we need to look at how can we have a bottom-up approach in these days of climate change, and how can we create that resilience in our communities by using the resources that are already available at the local level and taking it to make or to create the resilience that we need to build among our communities. So I'm suggesting that we need a community-based adaptation approach which requires participatory and inclusive and needs-based bottom-up approach. And leyo inesithembiso sokuthi abantu bazozibambela kona umsebenzi wokubasiza. Ngiphinde ngithi abaholi bendabuko babalekile. Angazi noma bamenyiwe yini kulomhlangano lo walezi nsuku ezimbili. Kodwa abaholi bendabuko babalekile ngoba ibona abahlala nabantu, abasebenza nabantu, abakhuluma nabantu. So we are suggesting that there's a very important need for collaboration between traditional institutions and municipalities so that we can be able to implement the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction as we know it. I want to thank you, and I want to come to my panelists. As I come to my panelists to get their view and their opinion on this issue. So, how can we optimize disaster governance to promote community resilience and ensure localization of the climate change discourse? I'm going to start with Sislungi.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So, as I was introduced, I am from the South African National Biodiversity Institute, which is better known as USANBI. And as SANBI, I think that all of us, in the different communities that we come from, we know that we are surrounded by an abundance of different types of ecosystems. So, sihlezi nemvelo around us. And what is important is that uma ngabe sinakekela imvelo, imvelo izosinakekela. So if we look after nature, nature can also look after us. So the approach that we advocate at SANBI is what is called ecosystem-based adaptation, which is about using nature to help us to adapt to the impacts of climate change. So as I said, ukuthi imvelo that we have around us can actually assist us in adapting to the impacts of climate change. We know that we've got things like our wetlands. If we invest in improving the quality of our wetlands, improving them so that bakwazi ukuthi enze ama functions that they would normally be performing, then they would assist us as communities ukuthi bengabe kufika ama floods, our structures are not affected by the flooding, and people do not lose their homes and lives are not lost. There's other things that we can do too. We know that there's all sorts of alien vegetation where we live. So if we are all investing in removing lama alien vegetation, because lama alien vegetation tend to have roots that are very, very shallow. So as the flood waters come through, the vegetation gets washed away, it ends up blocking stem water drainage, it blocks culverts and blocks bridges. So so the infrastructure that Uhulmeni has invested so much in ends up getting damaged. So those are things that us as communities can do to look after the environment that we live in, working in partnership with government agencies and Omaspala. So there's various ways that as a SANBI have been doing this in the past. I'll just give one or two examples of that. Because what is important is not only what you do, but how you do it. So we are very intentional in ensuring that we are involving all sectors of the community when we are doing the work that we do, that we create spaces where we are able to bring in the youth, that we bring in the voices of the elderly who can tell us, ukuthi, in the past, this is how they have approached things so that we can learn from what has been done in the past. That we create spaces where we can bring in traditional leaders and that we can bring in traditional healers as well. So an example of this is work that we are doing in the area of Mpopomeni, where we have been working with youth that we call EnviroChamps. We have been working with them to understand what wetland management is about. We have been working with them to capacitate them on how to monitor the health of the wetland that is within their area. And as they monitor the health of the wetland, they are also able to engage the community that they live in on this is what is happening in this wetland, this is how our actions as umphakathi are affecting this wetland. And then further to that, we have been also working with this very same youth to encourage them to develop their own change projects so that they can identify what further actions are required to improve the health of the wetland that is there within their own community. And then further to that, also capacitating them to understand how they can get funding for the projects that they themselves are going to develop so that they can take ownership of the projects that they've developed and work them through all the way to implementation. Can I go with another example? Do I have time?
1 minute.
Okay, so another example is where we are working with traditional healers in Gauteng. So we've got a program where we're working together with the Department of Water and Sanitation and an organization called Nature Speaks, which is an organization of traditional healers. So we know that traditional healers, like their office is nature. Bengabe beya emsebenzini besebenza nemvelo, basebenza nabantu khona kwimvelo. And so they know what the issues are relating to nature and the rivers, etc., that they work with. And so we've been working with them to help us in monitoring the quality of the rivers that they work with, and then further to that, to also start to develop the solutions for how can we improve the health of these river systems. How can they also in their work be helping us to disseminate the messages to the communities and the people that come to them for healing.
Thank you so much, Sis Lungi. Ngizobuya ngize la KwaZulu Natal ngaphambi kokuthi ngibuyele ku colleague yami ngizocela ukudlulisela kubabu Hadebe ungathatha umbhobho ukhulume nathi ukuthi from the perspective of provincial government, how can we optimize disaster governance to promote community resilience and ensure the localization of the climate change discourse?
No, thanks. Good morning. Cela ukubingelela abahlonishwa mayor, municipal managers, nawo wonke amakhansela akhona and senior managers akhona. Thanks very much for the opportunity. As the province of KwaZulu-Natal, we are the custodian of disaster management in line with a disaster management act that we are required to establish the disaster management center, and also we must make sure that we do our core responsibility is to save life, property, economy, and also to integrate a multi-sectoral and multidisciplinary administration. Our aim also is to ensure that we process the capacity with an aim of lessening impact to natural hazards that is related to the environment and technological. Back to your question. It is clear that, as it indicated by previous speakers, that the climate change is extremely weather, as well as the fire disasters are persisting and are a part of our existence. What does that mean? It means, as the province, we must embark on deliberation and focuses on the transformation by going back to basics to ensure that all stakeholders they comply with the provision of the Disaster Management Act and associate with the prescribe created on the necessary capacity and resilience. And then the fundamental aim, which is to develop a resilience as well as adaptation to climate change. And then the goal is to reduce the socio-economic environment impact of climate change and contribute to sustainable development. But as it was indicated, it is very important to understand that we cannot work alone as the government. We need to work with traditional leaders on the ground, as well as private partnership, so that they can invest on the capacity building, because what is very important is the planning. We need to plan for all this. We need to ensure that we align our disaster management plan with the climate change and to ensure how to respond to climate change, and also to capacitate our communities either through awareness campaigns or is either to with our trainings on how to reduce the impact of our disasters as well as the climate change. That is very important. Working together with the traditional leaders, the leaders in the community, such as councillors, as well as also traditional healers, because as we embark on a summer season, you may have found ukuthi bathatha abantu abaseyizibeni bethi bayobahlambulula, and then it causes drowning as well. So we need to make sure that we also educate them, or maybe they can use a swimming pool, not to take them to easy and full. But also we need to invest more on risk reduction programs, because KwaZulu-Natal, we also experience light hikes. So we need to ensure that we do invest on that one, where we install lightning cones to those high prone areas to reduce them, and even before they happen, because we can see where are the high risk areas, and also to ensure that we embark as we approach summer season on the drainage system, so that whenever the flooding is coming, at least the water can easily flow. It mustn't cause floods. We need to invest more on that one, risk reduction programs, as well as training, capacity building, and awareness campaigns as the government. But we do give support to all sector departments within the province, as well as all 54 municipalities, to ensure that their disaster management plans, they are aligned, and then they do have that spice of climate change, so that they can be able to respond. And also, what is very important is that those plans, we also test them. Once we consolidate for the province, we test them to see if it is working. It is very important for the municipalities as well to test their plan if they are working, to ensure whenever anything happens in case of emergency, they can be able to put it in place, not just develop the paper and then they put it there. Thanks very much.
Siyabonga kakhulu. Ngizodlulela my colleague Rabelani, who is our senior manager responsible for climate change and environmental management. How can we optimize disaster governance to promote community resilience and ensure the localization of the climate change discourse?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Program Director, my colleague, for the opportunity that you have given me. I think to start with, we need to play an active role, and this has been a discussion that has been made since yesterday, to empower our communities to understand what climate change is and what is their role in case of disaster. How can they play their own role on climate change? Because most of us think that we don't have much role to play, and this is just going to happen as it is, and government should assist us. Indeed, government should assist, but as communities, the Deputy Minister spoke yesterday, we have got a role to play. We can plant trees in our yards. We can start with the gardening programs and have food gardens. We can ensure that we practice energy efficiency in our homes, and so on and so forth. So I think our role as SALGA, we work with 257 municipalities. Our key role is to really transform our municipalities, but by ensuring that we are the voice, a trusted voice of municipalities at all levels, intergovernmental levels. So as we work with municipalities in the climate change area, we advocate for the development of climate action plans, which is quite critical, because those are the plans that assist municipalities to reduce the impact of climate change and also disaster through various measures that they take place. So At the moment, we had developed 9 district climate action plans with districts. That is a pilot phase, and we intend to develop more climate action plans with Ilembe, with the local municipalities, Mandeni, and all others. I think this is quite critical for us because if municipalities have robust climate action plans, they are able to strengthen their own resilience. We spoke, there was a talk yesterday a lot about how to ensure that there is risk, vulnerability and risk assessments that are developed. And it is those plans that have those assessments in place where at what level you are able to know as municipalities that these communities are much more vulnerable to climate change. They are located in a fragile area and what interventions should be developed in those areas. So that is the process that has to take place, and we are doing that so that municipalities can be responsive to climate change. And as they do that, we advocate that communities are not left behind, because we do at the moment have the just transition towards a just transition society. And when we do that, we make sure that we collaborate with stakeholders. We have dialogues that have been taking place in various provinces. We do have dialogue that will be taking place on the 14th of November here in KZN in Durban, where we are calling on all stakeholders. That is your non-governmental organizations, your academia, research institutions. We work with the Presidential Climate Commission, the various stakeholders that are key in ensuring that we are ready to transition towards a low carbon and resilient society. And we think that those processes are quite critical because there are opportunities, risks and opportunities. And what we're intending to do as SALGA, we're intending to ensure that we socialize the just transition so that our communities understand the opportunities that are available in climate change. For example, in the climate change mitigation, there are opportunities in low carbon transport, in ensuring nature-based solutions. My previous colleague from Sanbi spoke about the nature-based solutions, ensuring that our infrastructure is resilient and we've got green infrastructure in place. But when we do that, we make sure that we take all our communities with the youth, women, people with disability, people who are in a vulnerable area, so that their voices can be heard when we are developing our policies, and then we don't leave them behind in all spheres of government. So I think that is critical to ensure that as we have these climate action plans that we are developing, we have our communities involved. They are able to shape our policies, and then we're able to ensure that they understand what climate change is and what is at stake, and what needs to be done in terms of whether it's waste management, whether it's transport, whether it's the waste to energy opportunities, the green jobs that are available in the renewable energy space. We know that we have been having a load shedding crisis, but in those crises that come up, there are mainly opportunities. There are opportunities in ensuring that there are skills that are developed. As and when we have the solar energy, whether it's energy from wind or all other interventions, we ensure that there is retraining, there is reskilling of our communities, so that as we transition, we know that our communities are able to benefit from all the areas that we're transitioning on. I think all in all, this is what we are doing, and we are quite happy to engage with communities at the moment and all the other stakeholders that are critical to ensure collaboration and joint partnership in what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabelani. Sesibuyela lapha ekhaya Ilembe District Municipality, Babe Masupa Mathenjwa. How, as a local municipality, how can we optimize the governance of disaster management to promote community resilience and ensure the localization of the climate discourse?
Angibonge program director and then ngibingelele kubaphathi bami abakhona la leadership yonke khona management ekhona. I've seen management from various local municipalities esinawo la and greetings to colleagues nama departments akhona la. Thanks again, Program Director. I think it's straightforward. If we look at Section 28, where local, or should I say Agenda 21, specific, if I may read, because so many of the problems and solutions being addressed by Agenda 21 have their roots in the local activities, the participation and cooperation of local authorities, including communities, is key. So we should consider going forward developing a program that is focusing on local municipalities, if you like, and also communities. In doing that, we need to start identifying all key stakeholders, including the churches. Obviously, the educational institutions, it can be a school. Maybe if I may start off by indicating what is building resilience. Through whatever interventions, but the intention is to make people, or should I say, provide information to people for them to make a decision. That decision will entail ukuthi asikho isidingo sokuthi ngakhe eXhaphozini or ngiyolima amadumbe eXhaphozini ngingacabanga ukuthi ekugcineni kosuku yonke leyo nhlabathi will find its way into a river, causing what we term siltation. And that is the problem njengamanje efaced our water resources. As Ilembe, our main function is to provide water. Kodwa mawubuka level at which we are destroying our water resources, I can tell you now, come 5, even 10 years or so, sizobe singenawo ama water resources that we use to supply people. So we need to identify all stakeholders, groups, local groups, even the publishing local newspapers. If shove come to push, we need to have some sort of, because we are dealing with attitude. We need to change attitude because you know, for a very long time, the environment when it comes to our communities has been always into so we are dealing with, partly we are dealing with attitudes. Abantu abathile okufanele bakhulume nge-environment, which is a problem. That's one problem that we need to deal with. So we definitely need to intensify visibility, including among local newspapers. Little thing, if I may share a story, sike senza i-greening phezulu endwedwe lapha ePhakameni, and then our portfolio chair ended up sharing the entire activity. And you won't believe that everybody was